times, I know I'm a little on the tacky side, chewing the heck out of this gum, right? So, I want to talk about how I gained control over my panic attacks. Now, do understand, I'm probably a little on 10 because, you know, when you leave work, I feel like Mario Andretti or something, or like Mario, or in Mario Kart, like, you know, that driving game, and, you know, like, everyone is like throwing down. It's almost like a starting line. But yeah, I want to talk about the panic attack situation. So several years ago, I just started feeling weird. I couldn't figure out what is going on. I went to my primary care doctor. They were like, you might just want to like relax a little bit, cool down. Following year, I went again, and I was like, I don't feel right. I mean, I think I even used the words, I feel like there is impending doom of my death or something crazy. Like, I was like totally on 10. And so I was like, do you think it's cancer or something? Like, what's going on? And the doctor was like, okay. I'm like, and then I started getting these headaches. And, I'm not sure if you guys heard a single thing that I said, so let's start this all over. Hey, this is the Black Opinionated B.O.W. Black Opinionated woman, also known as a B.O.W. I mean, oh my goodness. You know, I'm on a struggle bus. So basically what I said was, when I leave work, I feel like I'm Mario Andretti, like I'm in the middle, or like I'm in the middle of a Mario Kart game, right? Like, cause like I'm like speeding to get out of there. I got to get home and do some things. But the title of this is called How I Gained Control Over My Panic Attacks. So basically what I said before there was no sound or whatever, because I had this thing plugged in, was several years ago I started feeling weird. Okay? I started feeling weird. Excuse me with the gum situation. I'm going to take my glasses off soon. I started feeling weird. I went to my primary care doctor, and I was like, I don't feel well. Something's not right. And so he asked me a bunch of questions. You know, you do all the normal tests. And he was like, you're fine. You're healthy. You're everything. And then I started saying, like, I feel like there's impending doom of my death or something. And I was like, do you think I have cancer? And he was like, well, how did you jump to cancer? I'm like, I don't know. And I was so highly emotional about it. I was just like, I don't know. Are you sure? It was so extra. Homie was like, well, we just ran tests on you again, and you're like really healthy. And I'm like, but I know I gained a few pounds. So are you sure I don't have, like, let me tell you, in my mind, I had hypertension. I thought I had congestive heart failure. Let me tell you, I don't know why I jumped onto that. And it could have been because at the time, several years ago, there was a lot going on. People were not well, etc. But what happened was, I started experiencing pain in my chest. And I couldn't understand. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm having a heart attack. Nobody's listening to me. I'm talking about, I was extra. My underarms were getting moist from sweat. I was like, why are my underarms moist? My eyes were moist because I always wanted to cry. But I had pain in my chest, and I wasn't really talking about it with a lot of people. But what I can tell you was, it was there. But the interesting thing about that was, things started getting progressively worse. I would have these moments at work, and I was like, I just couldn't breathe. There were times when I was lightheaded. I remember there were times, I'll never forget, there was, it was 5 minutes before a meeting, and I got up and just went into a bathroom stall, and I was like, get it together. I didn't want people to see me in this manner. So I'm trying to get it together. I don't know why I'm getting ready to start crying. I'm in a bathroom stall, and I'm trying to get myself together. I come out. At this point, I did a lot of just like heavy breathing, and I was like talking to myself. I was talking myself down off a ledge. I'm like, you're not nauseous. Like, what? Like, you know, even though I couldn't figure out why I was nauseous. My stomach was hurting me. I mean, like, I was in such pain, and I was like, oh my goodness. I went back to my meeting, and it was like, boom, back to performing. No one ever knew, none the wiser. But it kept happening. I kept having these weird episodes. I'd be at home and I'd be stressed out, and I couldn't understand why I was starting to have these heart palpitations on top of it. Okay? So I had pain in my chest, I had heart palpitations, I couldn't breathe. Went to my primary care doctor a couple times. he was like, you're totally fine. I think maybe you need to, who's asking about my sleep, maybe you need to take some Benadryl or something like that. I went to the birthday party of my nephew. I believe it was my nephew. Maybe it was my niece. I can't remember. It was a couple years ago. And in my sister's home, apparently their AC stopped working. So I was like, oh my goodness. It was like the opposite of like 40 days and 40 nights of rain. I was in pure hell. It was so hot. And for whatever reasons, because I apparently wasn't addressing whatever was bothering me, that heat triggered me. So I wound up going, we were leaving her house. I wound up going straight to the doctor. Straight to the hospital. Straight to the hospital. And I was like, I checked myself in, because we dropped my kids off at my mother-in-law for a second. I checked myself in, and I'm like, you think it's heat stroke? And then the more I was just getting so worked up over it, my husband's like, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm having a heart attack. I thought I was having a heart attack. I get to the hospital, and I'm talking to, I guess, the nurse or whoever was there. I was like, I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but I don't know what's wrong with me. I know I just got hot, but I think I might be having a heart attack. All to this stuff, because at that time, I really believed it. I had no explanation. I've already gone to my primary care doctor twice, and I was like, he's not listening. He's like, I take that back. There was one time I said, oh, I think I even have headaches now. And what he said was, well, there's nothing I'm going to be able to say that's going to make you feel better. I was like, well, do you think it's brain cancer? Let me tell you, this was the other thing. I thought I had brain cancer. He's like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to write you a script. You're going to go get was it a CAT scan or a CT? I can't remember which one it is. So I'm like stressed out now because I got to go sit in that tube thing. Like, I can't handle that. He's like, I think once you get the results back, you'll feel better or something along those lines. I'm like, that's some shady stuff, but I got to look out for myself. I get all that stuff done. You have to drink all that water and everything. And, people are looking at me like, why is she in here? Because I was like, you think it's cancer? And, when you're getting these things done, they're like, we cannot read these, but ma'am, we think you're fine, but we're not a doctor. We can't really say anything, but they kind of are. Get back, of course, the doctor's like, everything came back normal. Your brain is normal. I'm like, well, why did I have a headache? He's like, probably because you had a headache. I'm like, that's not normal for me. He's like, were you dehydrated? I'm like, I don't know. But anyway, so now, fast forward back to me being in the hospital. I get to the hospital, and I'm like, something's not right. I don't know what's going on. Do you think I'm going to have an aneurysm? Do you think it's cancer? Why can't I breathe? I couldn't breathe. I was weak. I was like, do you think it's congestive heart failure? Like, all of the most extreme things. They get me back there. They bring me back because, I'm clearly in distress. And my husband's like sitting there because I'm in distress. He's trying to be calm. So I'm like, the man of no words. You know what he starts doing? He's like, I think you're fine. Like, maybe we're hot. Like, I'm like, no, it's going down. It's going down. So he pulls out his phone and starts playing phone games. And the only thing I could think of is that was his coping mechanism. So now I'm in the hospital. I'm explaining things. And my husband's just sitting there. And I guess because he's like, either he's just extra or maybe something's going on. So he's trying to just stay myopically focused on this game, right? Which I don't know if that's the best thing. So I feel like I need to have a conversation with him. Like, if I tell you that, something's going on. The nurse looked at him and the technician, there was a nurse tech also. They just happened to look like me. And he said, excuse me, sir. Would you mind stepping out? I'm like, no, he can stay here. My husband's like, okay. And so they're like, no, please, sir, step away. And so my husband steps out. The nurses say to me, because at this point, I am clearly just all kinds of dysfunction happening. I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, extra. But I was scared. And they were like, ma'am, do you know what's going on right now? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, why am I so upset? Do you think it's cancer? I just kept asking about cancer. And they were like, man, we just tried to take a blood sample. We can't because you're so tight. Everything on you is so tense, and you're so like stressed about something. There's something going on. They were like, you're like in the middle of a panic attack, basically. I didn't realize I was like almost stiff. I was like, I can't breathe. It's so hot in here. And they were like, it's literally not hot in here. It was like all kinds of stuff going on. And they were like, do you understand that you were having a panic attack? And I was like, my dumb butt said, I don't know if you know this, but I'm black. And they looked at me, they're like, so are we? And I'm like, I can't have a panic attack because I have Jesus. I believe in Jesus. Like, this is what my ignorant self said. I literally uttered those words out of my mouth. I should probably take these off. Sorry, you can see like the dark circles under my eyes because of the weird sleeping habits I have again, which I have to get right back under control. So now, I'm sitting here, look at my hair. This is a situation. Oh, we're going to talk about that later. So now, they were like, ma'am, you're in the middle of having a panic attack. And I was like, I can't. Like, I don't know what this looks like. I don't get that. I always thought it was just something that black women, we just handle things. I'm like embarrassed that I would say something like that. I literally uttered that out of my mouth. And so they were like, they looked at me, and as they were talking to me, the nurse and the nurse tech who happened to look at me, they said, you know, it's not by design that we're in here. Not to say that other people can't talk to you, but they said, you know, we've seen this before. I'm like, seen what? I'm like, you know, I got cancer? Like, I was so stupid. They were like, no. And then it hit me as they were talking to me. They were like, we're just trying to make sure you're calm, which is why we're calm. They were like so calm, right? They were like, what is happening here is you're basically having like a panic attack. And when you're having a panic attack, one of the things we will do, like she said, in your case, if you notice that we just took our hands off you for a second, we just started talking, and we just wanted to get you calm. And right now you seem to be calming down a little bit, but you're still a little like, you're definitely, you're just in it. And they were like, do you have a lot of stress in your life? I'm like, well, don't we all? They were like, well, stress is stress. They started talking to me about how there has been a rise, at least at the hospital that I've attended. There's been a rise in black women having anxiety and panic attacks. They're like, it's part of our mental health thing. And I was like, not I. They were like, yes. They were like, so do we ask your husband to leave because we have to first figure out, was he the cause of your stress? And here I am begging him to stay in. I'm like, no, you can stay there. Like, sir, I need you to step out. I'm like, no, you can stay. So then I was like, well, he could be. I don't know. But I'm like, well, my whole family is. They were like, yeah, you got a lot going on, right? So we started talking about different things. They said, how often do you sleep at night? I said, I don't get a lot of sleep. And they just looked, same stuff that the doctor said. They were like, how much caffeine are you consuming? I'm like, a whole bunch because I'm not getting any sleep. So I was in this vicious cycle of sucking down caffeine, and I couldn't sleep, and I just kept sucking down caffeine, and I couldn't sleep, and it was like over and over and over again. And they were like, one of the things we're gonna need for you to do is we're gonna have to actually back off all the stuff that they tell you, back off your caffeine, you gotta go to sleep, blah blah blah. They recommend Benadryl and stuff like that. But I took it a step further because I was like, surely there is something wrong with me. It's getting dark out here. I might have to turn my light on shortly. Because there's something wrong with me, my primary care doctor sees all this stuff in the hospital. They're like, I want you to go see a cardiologist. I was like, it might be congestive heart failure. I was still on 10. I go see the cardiologist 2 or 3 times. I had to get hooked up to a Holter monitor, wear that around for a couple days, all this good stuff. After all the stuff that they did, I got pulled into a room as they were giving me my results from, I think she was Filipino, I don't know what she was, but she shaded the F out of me because it was funny, but not funny, but funny, but I didn't find it funny at the time. She looked at me Not that her race matters, but I just wanted to put that out there because I'm petty. She said, ma'am. Well, actually, she didn't call me ma'am. The other person, the nurses called me ma'am. But she said, Mrs. So-and-so, I've read everything. I have all your results here. Everything is fine with your heart. That palpitation you felt, you're one of the few people who can feel that extra heartbeat or whatever it was. They're like, not everybody feels that. There are some who can. And when they do feel that, when they are stressed, it will scare you. And that's what I was feeling. I said, but I was losing my breath. And she was like, that can happen. Yes. When you are under high amounts of stress. She said, I'm a good, let's just get dark out here. She said, I'm a good doctor. And I have, look, if there's something to be found, I could find it. And I'm telling you right now, you are totally fine. She was like, I am not a was it psychologist or psychiatrist? I can't remember which one can prescribe. But she said, I think your job, she said, I think what's bothering you is, it could be mental. And I was like, look at her, like, you trying to say, what did you just say? She's like, whatever's going on, that's causing you to experience these symptoms or whatever. But your heart is fine. So I had gone to my doctor, I had gone to the ER, I had gone to cardiologist. I kept going to doctors because I wouldn't and couldn't believe that it was me. I was under a lot of stress. I just thought that maybe I was, something else was going on. But it couldn't be me not being able to handle my stress. I refused to believe it. But after she told me that, and the ER, and my doctor a couple times, and the CAT scan, I finally had to accept the fact that I was like, I was stressed out. I was losing hair. It was like, ugh. So I was having these routine panic attacks on all kinds of things. And when I would have it, I would be so exhausted in the end, worrying about anything. I can tell you some of the craziest stuff that you're gonna be like, did you really? It might be TMI. So now, the title of this was called How I Gained Control Over My Panic Attacks. So let me just say this before I give you my simple answers. Let me say what was causing. Obviously, a lack of sleep. And that was because my mind was racing on different things. I started to worry about things that you worry about in middle age. Your children, your parents, your spouse, yourself, whatever. Other causes was the increased caffeine, which contributed to the vicious cycle of me constantly, like, I was just not sleeping. It was just horrible. I refused to believe that I was the problem. I was helping to cause the things that I was not mentally throwing things overboard. I was the problem. I was stressing over things that I could not control. Now, let me tell you what I did to get over it. And it did not happen overnight. It took me approximately 3 to 4 weeks to get myself under control. One of the first things I did was I actually had to cut back on my caffeine for a period of time. I actually went to no caffeine. I was doing decaf coffee. Then I eventually got back to like a normal size, whatever. But it took me some time because I was so scared of that feeling in my chest that I wanted no caffeine. That panic attack feeling that you get with the hyper pumping or whatever it is that's going on, the palpitations, it was rough. But that is what I did. I did that 3-3-3 thing where you touch 3 things, you try to identify 3 things, and then you say 3 things. I literally had to do that just to ground myself. It seems silly, but I did it a lot. Because I would literally have to tell myself, you're okay, you're okay, it's all right. This is not what you think it is. You don't have congestive heart failure. You're not dying of cancer. You're stressed the F out. I started saying no. Flat out, no. I said no. I started keeping gum on myself a lot. I mean, I've always had mints, but I kept gum. And the reason why I did that was it had the mint in it, which would settle my stomach, but also I could focus on the chewing. I would focus on the gum versus the other things that I was like hyper focused on, like for no reason. For no reason. I'm like, let me just chew this gum. You know what I did? I started talking. I remember I had a meltdown in front of my husband, and we were standing out in the garage, and he just listened. And that's all I wanted him to do. I'm like, don't tell me anything. I just want you to listen. You know what I did? I allowed myself to cry. I would be like, I mean, I had to literally allow myself to cry because I wouldn't cry. I'm like, I'm not that tough. He was like, I never said you were. Like, you know. But that was one of the few times he really just listened because I needed it. I prayed more. I was like the begging variety too. I'm like, I don't want to feel this. I actually, when I started opening my mouth, I realized I wasn't alone. I was not alone. I would start mentally punting things. Just throw it over the boat. A coworker told me that one time. He said, you got to throw things off over the boat. I had several people checking on me. It just happened to be 2 men, by the way, because I work primarily with men. They were like, hey, you got to throw that over. Why are you stressing over things you can't control? I think the biggest thing was when I started opening my mouth, I was telling a couple of people, some that were white, some that were black, I said, I embarrassed myself. I was talking about not only the fact that I had these panic attacks, but how I didn't think that black people had panic attacks because we have been through so much. We know how to cope. We knew how to, but I've had black and white people tell me, oh, honey, like, so they started explaining what panic attacks look like, how they've experienced it. Some people passed out. They were like, oh, yes. But what was interesting was when a black person, actually it was more than one. I was at a cookout or whatever. And this is a professional woman, by the way. And she explained how she had to deal with anxiety and stuff like that. And when she explained it to me, she was like, oh, why do you think that black women don't experience these things? That's the problem. We don't talk about it, and apparently we don't think enough of us experience it. I was talking to my best friend from high school. I was telling her about, you know, just like, man, maybe we need to start talking about things more. Maybe white people need more therapy and all this stuff. She was like, oh, definitely black women are starting to recognize that. So here I am when I started talking to the black women. And I know this sounds really racially charged, and I don't mean for this to be racially charged, but that was where my headspace was. Because when I spoke with white women, and they were talking to me about it, and they were breaking it down, they were really vulnerable and really super awesome, I took it in. But actually, I was more embarrassed when I spoke to black women, because they were like, you big dum-dum. We get stressed out just as much as everyone else. It's just that we haven't been talking about it as much as everyone else, and everyone else thinks that we're not allowed to have these feelings. But let me tell you something. When you experience panic attacks, like I don't know why. I think it was just because I was becoming more aware of my mortality when I entered into my 40s, for sure. And it was this build up until right around, I think it was 42, 43. I don't know why I was acting that way. But I think what it was, I was so embarrassed because I'm used to having control over my emotions and everything else. And in my, I started setting more boundaries. Like, I set boundaries in my early 30s, but I had to reevaluate what I was doing in my life. I had to say no. I had to be honest. That's hard. When you're being introspective, people call you out. Like, what do you think? Who the heck do you think you are? You think you're like Superwoman? I was losing hair. Oh my goodness, it was a mess. And once I started throwing things over the boat, and I forced myself into calmness, actually. It just like happened. Suddenly I was like, man, I'm not having these heart palpitations and everything else like that. The only thing where I still struggle with is because, you know, at the end of the day, I'm constantly thinking. My mind is always racing. I know at one point when I was dealing with my panic and anxiety, I was listening to a lot of Rain at night. I would put that stuff on and fall asleep to the rain. I don't know. I've always loved it. I love when it rains. It's very relaxing to me. I would put that on, and I felt like $1 million. Like, and then I would go to sleep, and I would actually have to take Benadryl. And there are times when I have to do that again. Like, I may have to start doing it again. Have you seen the bags under my eyes? It's because it is just something that I struggle with, which is the sleeping thing. I'm going to be home shortly. I took a little side road here because, you know, traffic and everything. But I'm not going to be able to talk later on because I got to eat, make sure the kids' homework is done, probably yell at somebody. And then my daughter has a late scrimmage. It starts at 7. So, I will say this. Black women need to talk about these types of things more often. These are the things we should be talking about. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm feeling some kind of way about my hair situation. And for those of you who don't know or saw my earlier video, I asked my daughter to help trim some hair up in the back. And somehow, I don't know what kind of jagged edge, you know, girl, let's just get married. I don't know why I did that. But, you know, remember the group Jagged Edge? But she totally jacked at the back of my hair. So because I had this weird short spot and everything, I had to just do a massive cut all the way around. So now my hair just barely touches my shoulders, but I had to cut like at least 2 inches off. So I told her she was fired. I should have just asked my son. Anyway, so I'm feeling some kind of way about my hair. But the point I'm making is, Black women love to talk about hair and beauty and how much Black men have wronged them. Yeah. Uh-oh. Somebody just killed a deer and they're out there. I can't. Somebody hit a deer or something. That's just a lot for me to take in. Yeah, I'm on the country roads. But yeah, so anyway, we like to talk about hair, beauty, colorism, Black men. And I feel like we need to be moving past that sometimes. We need to have these other discussions like, why are middle-aged women not sleeping? Excuse me. Why are we so stressed? How do we handle panic? I used to drink a lot of wine. I still like my wine. Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because I don't typically talk about that. I don't even know why I found that to be so embarrassing. But nevertheless, I was just so disgusted with myself because I'm like, how dare I let myself down? How dare I not be able to handle things that are bothering me? How dare I need someone else's help? I was mortified at my lack of strength. And now I'm really at the point where I'm like, look, I'm a full-on damsel. I'm like, look, I can't take on all of this. I don't like how I felt. It was crippling. But all right, so look, if you enjoyed the content, this is a really good time for you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button and like it, because I'm amazing in every way and I can do no wrong. Okay, I'm going to be home shortly, so at this point I'm getting ready to exit this conversation because I want to. All right.